everyone. I'm here with Mr. Brian Bates, local stand-up comedian. But you might recognize him from his former life because you had a career at...
In television?
Yes.
Yes, I did, but I was behind the scenes, so that probably...
Oh, were you?
Yeah,
Okay,
so I was
okay.
never on the air. I used to
I
work at
gotcha.
a local TV station here in Nashville, News Channel 5, for almost 20 years, but never on the air, so...
Okay, so maybe if you did recognize him, you're a stalker, so...
Yeah, yeah. Or maybe you worked at Channel 5, but
Yeah, that's
beyond
true.
that, you probably
Yeah.
wouldn't know me.
Yeah. So today, what he's doing is making people laugh.
Right.
So how do you make the transition from working at a news station to becoming a comedian?
Well, it wasn't easy. Now, there are some similarities because they're both creating content, but it wasn't an overnight thing. I would do my day job working at the TV station, and then at night I would go out and do comedy open mics, or then I started getting bookings, and I would start traveling some, and very often I would have to drive somewhere a few hours away, drive back that night so I could be at work the next morning. And then, I would never take vacations because I would be saving my vacation time for out-of-town gigs. And I did that. I did my day job and then built up my comedy. It was 8 years of doing both before I got to the point where I'm like, I think I can quit my job and go full-time into comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you, did you wake up one day and you're like, I'm kind of funny, I should try to stand up, or what made you kind of take that leap?
Well, I got a very late start in life as far as comedy goes. I was 35 when I took a stand-up comedy class.
Oh, okay.
And that's pretty ancient for stand-up comedy. But, I tell people, it's true. My dad passed away in December of 2006. I spoke at his funeral, I shared funny stories, and people had always told me I was funny, but sharing those funny stories made me realize that you can help people in the darkest of times. I was helping myself, I was helping those others grieving by sharing fun stories and light stories. And the next month, January 2007, I took a stand-up comedy class offered here in Nashville by a local comedian. I'd never met a comedian before. I didn't think my impression of them was they're not people that you can really connect with, which is true in many ways, but this particular teacher is still a mentor to me. His name's Rick Roberts. He's a great man and just a really good, down-to-earth person. And we became friends. We hit it off. I made friends with the guys and girls in my class, and we kind of got competitive as things do. We kept going and took more classes and started going to more open mics, and one thing led to the other. So that was about 8 years from that till the time I quit my job, and then it's been another 8 years since then.
Wow.
So I've been doing it 16 years altogether.
And so full time for about 8?
For about 8, yeah.
So you must be doing pretty well.
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. Now, when I quit my job, I was single, so I thought if I starve, I'll only be hurting myself. But since then, I've gotten married and I have a baby, so
Yeah.
now I've got more people depending on me. But
Yes.
thankfully, things are going okay.
Good.
Yeah.
So in terms of your wife and your daughter, how much of your material, when you do jokes, is it a lot of just personal experiences, or how do they feel about you your daughter's too young?
Yeah.
But your wife, what does she think about when you make jokes at her expense? Is she pretty
She's always been fine with it. The only time she's ever maybe suggested I not tell a joke is if it would seem, she's not even worried about herself, she's maybe worried more about me if it comes off too mean or things like that, which has happened.
Because you do more clean comedy.
I do clean comedy,
Yeah.
not edgy or about as clean as you get, but I do tell jokes about my wife, and some of them can come off mean to the wrong audiences, and sometimes I've sensed that. But before I was married, all my jokes were about being single so late in life, and now I got married for the last 3 years. Most of my jokes have been about being married and so late in life and all that, and now that I have a baby, a daughter, it's starting to become more about her as far as new material.
Yeah. So do you run it by your wife and say like, oh, I thought of this funny joke. What do you think? Or
Sometimes, usually it's more of, let me try it out once, and it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So I'll try it out, maybe at an open mic or somewhere, and then if it works and goes well, then, I'll usually run it by her maybe later.
So she's not always there to hear it.
No, a lot of times
okay.
I try it out when she's not there. I mean, she's rarely there to hear it, but sometimes I'll say, what do you think about this? And then a lot of times I'll come up with an idea and I'll try it out while I'm performing. And sometimes it works, a lot of times it doesn't.
Yeah.
But if I'm trying something and it's not going great, or if I tweaks, I will ask her for what she thinks about it, and sometimes she'll give me good advice, whether I should do it or not, or tweak it, or
that's good.
yeah.
Okay.
So she's very supportive. She's never,
She knows it's all.
she knows
comedy.
it's all fun and comedy, and she just has a great attitude about it.
That's good.
Yeah.
So since you've been doing this a while now,
Yeah.
do you feel like before you go out on stage, is it like nervous? Are you excited? Like, do you kind of feed off the audience? Like, what is that whole kind of like? Put us in your shoes.
Yeah, I don't get too nervous anymore. Just maybe enough nervous just to be sharp. Like, it's good to have a little nerves, shows that you care, that you're trying. I mean, we're here at Zanies, and we're in the green room, and these are all, posters of people that perform here. This is my home club, so I've been here so many times, and, when I first performed here, I mean, if you live in Nashville, Zanies is it.
Yeah.
And it was such a big honor to get to perform here, and it's still a big honor, and so I always get a little nervous when they start that music, the pre-show music, but I never get too nervous. I got to perform earlier this year at Bridgestone Arena, and
Yeah, I heard that was a big show.
yeah, I opened. It wasn't me, but I was on the show opening for Nate Bargatze, and he set a attendance record there, 19,365.
Yeah, crazy.
Now that I was nervous about.
Yeah, I bet.
For sure, but I performed on the Grand Ole Opry, and I've got to do a lot of cool stuff. And yeah, I get nervous, but not super nervous.
Have you ever had any bad experiences with like hecklers or anyone who's just kind of been a butthole?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, again, I think the fact that I'm clean and my comedy's not real edgy probably helps me as far as
That's
people
true.
not wanting to yell out as much. But it's rarely the heckler like we think of that's trying to upstage you or be funnier than you. It's usually just a drunk person in the audience who doesn't realize that they're even, they think they're helping the show.
Yeah.
And you just got to deal with them. And it doesn't happen too often, but occasionally somebody will yell out something or say something.
Is it hard, like, if you have because I don't know how your process is, but like,
Yeah.
if you have your set and then somebody does something and you kind of get off track a little, is it easy to kind of like
Get back
improvise
on.
and kind of play with the people?
It's gotten a lot easier for me. I've never been good at crowd work, and I'm still not great at crowd work. I'm usually just, some comedians are so seamless as far as talking to the audience and in and out, and I've always been more of, I gotta stick to my jokes, but I've finally gotten better about interacting a little bit with the audience member, and then getting back to my acting. It's just a matter of being comfortable on stage, but I certainly don't engage with the audience unless they engage with me first.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for interaction. I just want to tell my jokes. And
Yeah.
definitely early on in my career, if someone said something or yelled something that I had to acknowledge, it could really throw me off as far as timing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But now I've kind of got where I can edit in my head a lot faster.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And you also have a podcast.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes. So about 3 years ago, during the height of COVID, my buddy Nate Bargatze, who, again, if you live here in Nashville, you probably know he's blown up and got some really.
And he's a comedian too?
Yeah, he's a stand-up comedian, and he's just killing it out there. And everything shut down, of course, during COVID, and he wanted to start a podcast, so he had some way to, get stuff out there. And we're friends, so he invited me to be part of it. And then another local comedian, Aaron Weber, also joined us. So there was 3 of us, and that started summer of 2020. And then it's grown and grown. We added a 4th member, Dusty Slay, and so it's just 4 guys sitting around talking about whatever. But it's been so much fun, a huge help to me in my career because so many people watch it. And so now when I go out on the road, fans of the podcast come to my shows, and it's so much fun, and it's been the best thing that's happened to me so far as my career.
So where can people hear it?
Well, it's on Apple. Well, first of all, it's on YouTube. You can go on YouTube. It's a weekly podcast. Comes out every Wednesday, a new episode. And it's called Nate Land. And so if you go on YouTube and look up Nate Land, you'll see it. It's also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I think you can listen to it pretty much anywhere where podcasts are. But I would, I don't know exactly, but I feel like it's about half and half. Half the people listen to it and half the people watch it on YouTube.
Okay. And it's like you guys just kind of talk about life?
We have a topic, and I'm kind of the researcher. Maybe it's my news background that led me to that. But we'll have a weekly topic, and it's something, as ridiculous as we just learn about it on the show. So it can be something as ridiculous as calendars, or we'll take a state, Rhode Island, and we'll just learn about it. And I do the research, and I'll kind of read off some facts, and we just kind of riff off of it, and we share our own story. And it always, just like any conversation you have with your friends, it spawns off into a million different conversations, and then you're like, how did we even get here? What were we even talking about? So it's a lot of fun. People say that it's just like they're hanging out with their friends, and it's also clean, so people can have it on their kids in the car or around the house, people like that. Most podcasts are kind of like stand-up comedy. They're not clean, so you gotta be careful. But it's fun.
Do you feel like that is, in a way, more pressure because it's not like rehearsed, or?
No, I mean, well, the only thing I'd say is, from a TV and news background, we would always, we wouldn't rehearse every day, but we would have kind of, we'd have kind of down what we're talking about. Obviously, the anchors would read their scripts, or we talk about this. And this is totally, yes, I've done research, but as far as what we've talked about, we do no prep ahead of time.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, because you want it to be more conversational and in the moment and not scripted. So, it really works out best that way. So if we have an interesting story about ourselves, like we want to share, like something that happened to us this week or whatever, we save it for the podcast. So we hear it for the first time on there. Yeah. And that's
Are there any like favorite jokes you have, or jokes you told that have gotten the best reaction, or like anything that kind of stands out?
It used to, like I said, it used to always be about me being single. And here's what I learned. I do a lot of self-deprecating material. And when I first started in comedy, what I found was often I wasn't good enough. I was doing so much that the audience at times would feel sorry for me more than laugh at me.
Aww.
And that would be the reaction I would have. Aww. And that's not what I was going for. So as I got better as a comedian, I could do self-deprecating material and deliver it in a way that they didn't feel sad for me, just laughed with me. And then, as I got married, then all of a sudden all my jokes weren't just about me, they were also about my wife. Now I still have plenty about myself, but I deliver them in a way where people can relate more than just feeling sad. And then, and now it's about my daughter. So to answer your question, I don't have specific jokes that I guess are my favorite, at least that I can think of right now. Whichever ones that people laugh at are my favorites.
What about like a favorite comedian or someone who you kind of look up to, where you're like, I wish I thought of that joke?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's definitely, as far as favorite comedians, I tend to lean toward clean comedians. So Seinfeld, Jim Gaffigan, Brian Regan, some of my favorites. Nate is one of my favorites. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times where I'll hear a joke from someone, and I'll be like, "Oh man, I wish I'd have thought of that, because it was in here, it just hadn't come out." And now, as I write jokes about my daughter, a lot of times I'll come up with an idea and I'll think, did I think of that because so and so has already done a joke about that, you know, and it's similar, or did I come up with that on my own? Yeah, I mean, there's times I'll hear jokes and I'm like, I would have never thought of that in a million years. And there's times I'm like, oh man, that's right, kind of my wheelhouse. I should have thought of that. Yeah. I mean, Nate has a lot of jokes. Nate has a 10-year-old daughter, so he's been doing daughter material for years, and so a lot of times I'll come up with a joke about my daughter, and I'll think, well, Nate kind of had a joke like that. Did I even think of this because of his joke? I don't know. Sometimes I really don't know if I came up with it on my own or I sensed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell everyone, like, upcoming shows, where to find you on socials, all that stuff.
Well, I was trying to think I don't know exactly when this will come out, but
oh, that's true. So where can they check the calendar?
Well, my website is brianbatescomedy.com, and I have all my upcoming shows on that, and I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Brian Bates Comic. I know I have a show here at Zanies November 8th. I'm headlining here November 8th, and you can go to zanies.com to buy tickets for that. And yeah, that'll be a big show. I love performing. I mean, I love traveling the country, but obviously my favorite's to be here at home and get to perform for the hometown people here in Nashville.
Does your wife and or daughter tend to come when you play locally a lot? Or?
No, I mean, my daughter's never been. Of course, she's just 15 months, so it'd be really hard. My wife would come some, but now that with a baby, it's really, really hard for her to come. In fact, I think the only time since we've had a baby that she's been able to come to a show was the show at Bridgestone Arena, because that was such a big show that, you know, it was a special night. So we got a babysitter that night, but usually she doesn't get to come anymore.
Does she get to at least, like, do rehearse for her? Does she get to kind of hear, like, see your show, like, you know, at home?
Well, like I said, I run some jokes by her, but mainly, no, she sees clips. I post a lot of clips on social media.
Yeah.
So she'll see a joke on social media, or sometimes, you know, a longer version. But she's kind of over it by now. She still supports me, but she's not dying to see my act. You know, she's seen it.
Yeah.
So she just mainly social media when I post it. Yeah.
So I want to end by asking what advice you have for any aspiring comics. Like, if you want to get into stand-up comedy, especially clean comedy, like, what would you tell them is the best piece of advice?
Well, I would say, even if you're not aspiring to be a clean comedian or a clean comic, it's probably best to start off clean, because it'll open so many more doors for you if you can work clean. Even here at Zanies, which is for the most part the only comedy club here in town. There's a couple of others. There's another place here in town that does more improv, and there's some local shows. But as far as, and Zanies is one of the top comedy clubs in the country, so it's a great place to come. But if you want to work here, especially as you start off as an MC, there's basically 3 levels. There's the host or the MC, that's the first comedian, and then there's what they call the feature act, which you might think that's the headliner, but it's the middle act, and then there's the headliner. So you start as the MC and you work your way up, and they really want you to be clean for those shows. Even if the headliner's dirty, he or she probably wants the MC to be clean. It's just more professional.
Is that what they call them? Dirty?
I mean, or blue, you know, blue material, or dirty. Yeah, dirty and clean is okay. Yeah. So that would be one advice. I would say try to write clean. But if you're starting out, I mean, the two best pieces of advice, it's kind of obvious, but get on stage as much as possible. And there are open mics around Nashville almost every night that you can get on. And there's a website, NashvilleStandup.com, where you could learn about all the shows. Get on stage as much as possible. That'd be the first piece of advice I get. And then the second is just write all the time. Write, and practice, and then edit and change it, and keep writing and keep performing, and then just make connections and hang out. Come to Zanies, hang out. Once they get to know you and know you're a comedian, they'll let you come in for free for most shows. Unless it's sold out, they'll let you come in, sit in the back. So that's what I did, and it's not a fast process, but you know, if you get to know people and keep performing, get better, you know, it can happen.
Yeah. I did think of something else. I know I said that was
Yeah.
Do you feel like you also have to have pretty thick skin in this business? Like, do you ever feel like you tell a joke and it kind of bombs and you're kind of like,
Yes, and I don't think entertainers generally do have thick skin. And it's interesting how, I would say this is probably true for singers and certainly true for comedians. We want to be liked, and we're often shy, introverted people, which is the opposite of what you would expect.
Yeah.
And then we get out there on stage in front of people. So when a joke doesn't work, it's hard not to take it personal, because you put your heart into it. It's often about you and whatever. But the longer I've done it, the more I realized I don't take it as personal as I used to. I'm still disappointed if I have some new jokes that I'm excited to try out.
yeah.
And I did here at Zanies, they have every Monday night, they have a show called New Material Monday, where you get to come try out new material. It started during the pandemic. And I tried out a bunch of new material this past Monday, and most of it bombed.
Oh no.
And it's not fun. I didn't like it, but I don't take it as personal as I would have, before.
It kind of helps you mold your
Yeah.
jokes.
Yep. So, I'm not willing. There would be a time when I was younger, I'm like, I should just quit. We all feel that way, but now I just know that's just part of it.
Yeah.
Get back to writing or fixing the jokes and get them better. But yes, you definitely do have to have thick skin and realize it's not personal. Just it's hard.
Sure.
You got to just keep working at it and learn your voice. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Check him out on all the places and come see him either at Zanies or wherever you are.
Yeah. November 8th here at Zanies. But check my website. I'm at other places, either around Nashville or all over the country. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. See you later.